Hello, welcome back to Madrona's Pulse Teachings. I'm Iris, and we are chatting about the astrology of the week ahead. We are talking about the 20th through the 26th, and we do have a pretty big start to the week as usual. That's been the kind of theme of 2025, and that is happy Aquarius season. Our sun is in Aquarius season when I am posting this. And that means the sun coming into Aquarius is in a conjunction with Pluto. Okay, so that's the big energy that we kind of start this week off with. I'll talk about that. And we also have a very active Mercury this week that is talking with Mars retrograde, and it's talking with Uranus, and it's talking with Neptune as it kind of moves throughout this week, as it moves through Capricorn. So that is also important to know, that there is potentially a lot of information coming up in our own process of kind of inquiry, in our own soul path, in our own spiritual journey. There could be some insights coming up, especially as the way that this Mercury is talking to that Mars, Uranus, and Neptune. That said, there are also going to be insights that are unfolding as we journey forth into 2025. So beginning with the beginning of the week, our sun comes into Aquarius. And it comes into not only its conjunction with Pluto, it is also in a trine to Sedna, okay, who is that galactic archetype working with us on a deep, deep transformative level of what I work with as archetypal woundings. This is where it is not kind of a clinical understanding of trauma so much as this wound that is part of the psyche. It's seated in the soul for this life, and it also simultaneously connects us, yes, to our own journey and to something that we are so much bigger, that is so much bigger than us. And it is about the transformation that comes from our archetypal wounds. That's part of how we can work with Sedna, especially when she is trining Pluto, especially when that sun comes into Aquarius and conjuncts Pluto and trines Sedna. Okay, so if you're curious about that a little more, you can look into my Sedna-Pluto Trine Workbook. You can buy it, or you can just join us on Patreon, join the New Moon Vibes or the Cosmic Rhythms, and it will come as a download for you. And, you know, this is big energy. It's big energy, not in that everything changes in one day. That said, I'm making this before the 20th. We know there's lots going on globally. Lots can happen in a day. Archetypally, however, this is about seeding a new cycle, okay? And so that sun comes, it comes into its annual conjunction with Pluto, and this gives us an opportunity to really seed in to very transformative intentions for the next year in that kind of cycle of our identity, especially as it calls to our authenticity, especially as that authenticity calls to our healing journeys and paths. And this is the first time we're having the sun conjunct Pluto in its full-on Aquarius mode. So this is very significant. This is also the seeding into the beginning of this journey that is a 20-year journey with Pluto at Aquarius, okay? And so often we do work with that sun in a conjunction with Pluto in that idea that there is this potential for illumination. That illumination, that shining light on the areas of our psyche and lives that we might not always have light shown onto, you know, that is not always easy work. And especially in Aquarius, especially with Sedna talking, you know, that sun conjunct Pluto is asking for deep listening. It is asking for us to quiet our mind so that we can hear beyond our mind, because this is absolutely beyond our mind. Our mind just translates the energy, the archetypal resonance that's coming through with this type of signature. And so you could be seeding in to a process that most likely is already underway. This is part of Pluto and Aquarius. It's already been underway, but now we might get a little bit of illumination also about what really needs to break down. What needs to break down so that we can embody our authenticity in a new way, in a way that it was not possible before, in a way that if you told us 10 years ago or 15 years ago or however many years ago, it might have scared the daylights out of us, or it might just not have believed it, or it might have touched into that part of us. I was like, really? Really? Is that possible? I don't see how that could ever be possible, but is it? It also could be all of those reactions if you talk to some younger version of yourself. And now something is becoming possible. But that possibility, which is always the case of awakening energy, means releasing, means letting go. And so there's something in our kind of solar identity of our identity in our authentic self that needs to break down in order for us to move forward. And of course, that is an ongoing process of breakdown, but we might get an illumination about what it is in our psyche, and it most likely goes pretty deep. Okay, so that's the energy that we start this week off with. And as we then move, then we come into Mars retrograde having some conversations, and Mercury, and especially them having conversations together. So, excuse me, around the 22nd, we have Mars retrograde come into its sextile with Uranus and a trine with Jupiter. Oh, sorry, a trine with Juno, not Jupiter, the female divine feminine energy, and that is Juno, who is in Scorpio. Okay, so we've got that Mars retrograde. Our Mars is out of bounds. It's in Cancer. It is retrograde. It is really, really, especially this week, as it is in that sextile with Uranus and in the trine with Juno, that Mars is, we are on a journey to unlearn, to literally shed embodiments of what we have thought the purpose of our drive is, of what we have thought the best use of energy is, in order to come through this reprogramming of what it means to have our drive aligned with care and nurture. This is the opportunity for us, for those of us who are listening, are co-creating, are surrendering. And Mars retrograde is learning to surrender, and now it talks on the 22nd, moving to the 23rd as well. It talks to that Uranus, who is going to station direct at the end of this month, who's moving so slowly. And there is this awakening energy around our own integrity. That Juno is in Scorpio. She's opposite Uranus. She was opposite last week. And she is in this amazing position to awaken to this reclaimed depth of her own raw power and emotions that brings her into earth consciousness. This is divine witchy energy reclaimed in this deep integrity of how we connect intimately with ourselves and others. I love Juno in Scorpio, especially when she's opposite Uranus. And now they're both talking to that Mars retrograde, so they're able to bring some of that energy into, this is deep self-care. This is not surface. This is not the billion-dollar industry that teaches us to hate ourselves so that then they can profit off of whatever they're teaching us self-care is. This is so deep. This is about my needs, my raw vulnerability, how I connect to earth wisdom, how I connect to my body as a living consciousness, not an objectified body, not the sexualized body. This is the embodied consciousness that Uranus and Taurus talking to this Mars retrograde out of bounds in Cancer with Juno can bring us into. And then the next day, the next couple of days, we have Mercury come, and Mercury comes and it is going to be opposite that Mars retrograde. That's going to be exact on the 23rd. Yes, the 23rd, right? And then as that happens, of course, Uranus is going to talk to that Mercury, and as is Juno. So we have this conversation unfolding. And, as Mercury comes, and Mercury is in Capricorn, it's going to be opposite that Mars retrograde in Cancer. How can we also really tune in and get the messages in our own process of healing, in our own process of unlearning the messages, the learning, the messages that media just constantly feeds us closed loops with. Uranus breaks it. And Mars in retrograde lets us reprogram, and Mercury helps us to understand what it is about my drive, my needs, my wants in ways that could potentially go so deeply into the body, into healing, into awakening. This is a Uranus who's going to station direct, and then it's going to move into Gemini, so its energy is really potent in Taurus. And so there could be messages coming through. Romeo is giving us messages now because he wants to go outside, and I will let him outside in a moment. And then the last thing that I want to say is we're going to end this week, and that North Node, who is now at the final degrees of Pisces, is coming into its conjunction with Neptune, okay? And so it's going to come into 28 degrees, and as we end this week out, it's going to be within 1 degree of Neptune. And then next week, we're going to have Venus conjunct that Neptune. We're going to have Venus conjunct our North Node. We're going to have Venus venture into Aries, where then she's going to have a retrograde. And so Venus is coming into that conversation, but we have that closing of the window between the North Node and Neptune, which will fully close in February. And so this is powerful. This is dreams, dreamscapes, creativity, spirituality, really inviting us into the waters of intuition, especially the more that life is not making sense, the more that what should be logical or rational in the mainstream is seeming less and less of that, the more that we want to come into our other ways of knowing. Uranus and Taurus is incredible for awakening those other ways of knowing through the body, and that energy is heightened this week. And then we also have the North Node coming close to Neptune, which also opens up our other ways of knowing through intuition, through dreams, through creativity, through your spiritual practices, through astrology, how it all is talking with you and through you and supporting us on these complicated journeys of being human beings in this plane. So with that, I send you love, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.